Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra and welcome to Creative 404. As you can see on my table, I have a lot of things. But we are going to do a pattern making tutorial without having a pattern. What? Well, as you can see from the duct tape or this tape, masking tape, you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to do. So, these are the items I have. I have a paper towel, masking tape, measuring tape. This is a seamer, or I call it a seamer, I'm not sure what the actual name is. A straight edge ruler and a pencil and some graphics paper. Now the graphics paper is optional, but I like to have a graphics paper for making these patterns because it's easier and it's just a little nicer to show people and measure things on it because I got right angles everywhere that I need. But you don't need the graphics paper, just regular paper works. I just wanted to show you. I also have some dimensions on this, which is circumference divided by pi, so I can get the radius. And I'll show you that in a second. First, we're going to need a doll. And of course, I'm going to use my Blythe. But any doll, such as a Barbie doll, will work. Or if you're using LOL dolls, Monster High dolls, Rainbow High dolls, Ever High dolls, LOL dolls, any type of doll that you have, you can do this particular tutorial on. But I'm going to start with my Blythe. She's a little bit dirty, but that's fine. She also has a head peg. So, first off, we are going to wrap the doll with some paper towels. Tissue paper, toilet paper, any type of paper you have is good. I picked a paper towel because it's a little bit thicker and it's less likely to rip. So I wrapped her in some paper towel. Now I'm going to take some masking tape. Oh my god, I'm getting all the emails while I'm doing this. And I am going to wrap her in the masking tape. Just making it really nice and tight. Making sure that I have paper towel to protect the doll. Oh, I forgot one other thing. You're also going to need an X-Acto blade. So I'm wrapping her up nicely and tight with the masking tape. This is just really cheap masking tape. I like to use some fancy masking tape, which is about 1 centimeter. Yes, 1 centimeter in diameter. I also have a 0.5 centimeter or 5 millimeter tape. So I did her waist first, mainly just to get the paper towel onto the doll. What I also like to do is do the top of the bust. And I do that by doing this kind of maneuver, where I put the middle right on the top of the bust and then I bring the points to the back. And that gives me the top of the bust. Mine didn't go all the way through, so it's kind of sticking up in the back, but that's fine. I'm just going to take some tape and get it there. Alright, then I do the under bust. I just rip it off so that it's nice. Just press it into the bust. Give the doll her dues. Alright. I like to do 2 coatings of this, 2 to 3 coatings actually, of just masking tape all around. Yeah, that was a nice one. It went all the way around. And now I got a nice tight fit right there. I'm also going to do the shoulders, which I'm not going to bother too much with the paper. It's going to stick to the doll, but that's fine. I'm just going to put it on her. I'm going to focus on this right side of the doll You don't have to do both sides of the doll. Only when you're wrapping it to get the circumference around the body do you have to really go on both sides of the doll. Also, doing just half the doll is a little bit difficult because you end up not being like if you just do half right here on the body, the tissue paper will move around and it will be kind of funky. But I'm just taping in every direction I possibly can, getting this nice and tight against my doll. I'm just about done. This really doesn't take that long. Awesome. I'm going to do one more around the waist and then she's done. Making sure all those pieces are nice and tight and secure. Awesome. That is the taped doll. Okay, now that we have the doll all taped up, we need to start drawing our lines. And I need to reorganize myself because I am sitting kind of funny. All right, I got a Sharpie. You don't have to use a Sharpie, you can use a pencil if you'd like, but I find that my markings are easier to see with a Sharpie. What I like to do is draw down the middle of the bust, so real gently, so I don't get Sharpie all over my doll. I'm just going to make the middle piece. And I have really good eyes, so I can tell where's the middle. I'm going to do the back. The back is easier because they usually have a little indent on the back. So I just run my finger to get that indent to stick out a little bit more. And I draw the back. Awesome. Now to do the side, I just look at it from its angle and I just guess where it's going to be, which is probably right around here. I like that. I'm going to do the thing on the top. Same thing on the top. I'm going to sketch a little line, probably like around the belly button area for the waist. And I just noticed that the back line doesn't extend far enough, so get the back line down. Probably getting Sharpie all over myself. Yes, I am. So now we got the back line. Now we're going to do the neckline. I want the neckline to go more natural, right around there. And then I want it to be right here against the base of the doll. There we go. That's pretty good. Now for the armhole, I kind of taped it not enough, but that's fine. It's just barely enough. And I'm just going to sketch a nice armhole for her. Awesome. Now that you have the base of the shirt nicely done, you're going to have to think about the bust. She happens to be a big bust girl. If I were to use the smaller bust girl, I would only need one dart. One dart should be efficient for her, but she's a big bust girl. So I am going to you can make either two darts. You can put one going like this against the back, and then one going up and down here. So side to side, you can have it go either up into the shoulder here or down into the side seam here. So either into the shoulder seam or down to the side seam, and then one going straight up and down. But I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and I want a princess seam. I don't want darts. Darts are kind of crazy. And I want my princess seam, I can't go into the shoulder because the shoulder is too thin. So I'm going to go into my my sleeve seam. I think I was calling it shoulder earlier. Oops. And I'm just going to bring it down. There's a bust point right about here, And I'm bringing it down parallel to the middle and all the way down. There we go. And you can also put a dart on the back if you'd like. She does have a bit of a sway back. If you see from the side here, she does have a little bit of a sway back. So having a dart in the back might be beneficial, but I'm gonna forgo that. I think it's fine. I think it would work still just the way it is. So now that you have your markings down, you need to cut her out. So I'm going to cut, and you got to be careful so you don't cut your doll. My dolls all have a little bit of markings on them, unfortunately, because I do a lot of these. Now this is going to be a sleeveless shirt. I think at a later date I'm going to do a sleeved shirt and show you how I do that. But we're just going to cut her out of this using the lines as guides. And then just gently peel the one that you're not using off the one that you are using. There we go. Let's see, did I damage her too much? Nope, I didn't damage her at all this time. Yay! And then just pop it off. I happen to have these small scissors. They're actually cuticle cutters. You can continue using the X-Acto knife or just any type of scissors to get this nice and off. But we are going to just use these cuticle scissors to cut it out. And we're just going to cut along our line so that we have the pieces separated. I'm just going to get rid of some of the trash that happens. I'll do the bust next after this. So you just cut this out. Awesome. Now we do the bust. To cut this out, we just gently cut it out, going all the way up and close to that bust point, and then all the way to the side, just following our lines. That's all we're doing, is following the lines. Now I did cut the shoulder seam. I know from experience that doing the shoulder is very hard when it's very small. So what I'm going to do is end up connecting them back. And I got some tape. So, you need a pencil, you need your little drawings here, and some tape. Well, actually, no tape. I'm going to do it one at a time. So we have our grid paper. I'm going to align this piece to the middle. And I'm just going to start tracing it down onto the grid paper. Now one thing you'll notice is that the middle of this is actually kind of bowed because of the bust. I'm actually going to get rid of the bow and just do a straight line so that I could fold it in half on some fabric. I'm going to take my straight edge and use this to go all the way down. Oh, I forgot that I'm going to, yeah, that's fine. I still got plenty of room. I'm going to hold this one here. And just trace my pattern. Now I'm just fixing up my lines so they look better. The back should be a little bit bowed, but it doesn't look like it bowed this time. So I'm just going to make a straight edge, make a straight edge, make a straight edge for the sides, I think. Here's my princess seam. Here's my armhole. Now I'm going to do this one too, giving some room because I need to add seam allowances later. Awesome. Now I'm just making these lines look a little nicer. Probably do a straight edge here too. There we go. Now we have our tiny little pattern nicely done. The next step is to make a copy of this. You can use this copy and then make another tracing of your items. I'm just going to cheat and use a copier. So I now have a paper copy of my pattern. So here's my pattern, here's my paper copy. I have my two side pieces here. And I have some tape up here. And what I'm just going to do is take my scissors, my poor fabric scissors. Unfortunately, I cannot find my regular scissors. Just cutting little pieces of tape. You want them to be little pieces so that it's easier to put your paper pattern onto your doll, which is our next step. So we gotta take our doll again, and we're gonna take the paper pattern, and we're just going to drape it along the doll. And we're going to start taping it to the doll to make sure that we got a good fit. This can be a little tedious and frustrating sometimes if you're just starting out, but that is okay, you're fine. We will get through this. It is going to be just pretty. Just think about the final product while you're doing this, and think about how cool it's going to be to have your very own custom pattern for your own doll. So the front's a little bit baggy, but that's fine. Let's see how the sides are. Oh, the sides fit perfectly. That's nice. I think the front is baggy because I didn't put the back piece on there. I didn't put it on there well enough. But we have it nice and taped. Yeah, and then I kind of broke it. Does this see? Yeah, this fits. Now normally I would be a little bit more tedious. I'd make sure all the paper pieces line up completely and do that. But what you just need to know is if it has a basic shape, that is going to be work. But one thing that this pattern that most people don't know is that this is skin tight. Oh my God, it's super skin tight. What do you do when you're sewing and you have seams inside your fabric? You have the side seam, you have the back seam, you have the princess darts. All of that has to be skin tight, like skin tight. And there's not enough wiggle room to add your seam allowance underneath that fabric, which is what you're going to have to do if you're sewing this together. So a little trick that I found while sewing a bunch of this is to add a couple of millimeters to your side seams, which this side seam is actually a little bit wrong. I forgot to make this a straight edge. See how it has a curve? It needs to be straight. Why? Because this one's straight. This one's straight, now this one's straight. Now what you're going to do is add a couple of millimeters. I like to think maybe 4 millimeters extra on your side seams. And that will allow some looseness to the fabric and make it so that your seam allowances can fit. I also do the same to the back. So just add a little bit, and there you go. You can erase this line. Make sure you know that this is where your pattern's fabric's going to be. This is your new pattern. Now, you can either cut this out, put it on some fabric, and then then cut around the lines without getting too close to the lines, making your own seam allowance as you go along. But I like to make my own seam allowances using this tool here. And I like to make it maybe, I like 8 millimeters a lot. But I've done this enough times that I can just draw it freehand. And it's usually about 1/4 of an inch to 8 millimeters for my seams. And I just go around and sketch them in there. Normally I do this in Illustrator, but I figured a lot of you don't have Illustrator capabilities. So I am doing this freehand for you guys so that just about anybody can do this. If you have just a little bit of drawing skills, I'm sorry about that. What you really need is this piece to be as perfect as possible. Your seam allowances don't have to be perfect. What you're going to do is you're going to end up cutting both pieces out. So you're going to cut along your outer ring, which is right here, this outer ring, and then you will trace that on your fabric. You would trace that on your fabric. Sorry, I was trying to draw this real quick. You can make it more fancy if you like, but I'm just really roughly sketching this in. Alright, so more emails. You're going to trace the outer ring onto your fabric, right? After you've traced that outer ring, you're going to trace the inner ring. So cut off your seam allowances, which is this. This is your seam allowance. You're going to end up cutting that off and doing 2 tracings on your fabric. You're going to end up sewing along your inner ring so that you have a nice piece of patterns. So I'm going to do that and I'll show you what it looks like. So here it is traced on some fabric. I used 2 different colors. The blue, with the exception of this line here, which has an X, you will cut out. Then the purple, you would sew along. Then you would make a little paper busk and make sure it fit. Then you'll just sew this all together. I have a tendency to actually cut off all the way, cut off this part here, and then cut off this part here. So cut off the collar and cut off the sleeves while doing this particular step. This step is just to make sure that your pattern fits the doll. Once it fits, you can then use lining to turn the pieces that we just cut off, which is instead of cutting, like on your final piece, you're not going to cut them off. For your mock-up, which is what this is, you'll cut them off just so that you know where the collar and the sleeve holes are aligned. This is just mock-up 1. After mock-up 1, you'll do one with lining. So if this fits, you'll do one with lining. And if the lining fits, then you can do your fabric. But this is just the top piece. What about the bottom piece of your dress? Well, that comes back to that circumference divided by pi information, which pi is 3.14. And I am going to need the circumference of my doll, which is what this tape is for. I'm going to use centimeters, and I'm just going to wrap it around. And I like to use 2 as my guide, which is 10. 10.5 minus 2 is 8.5, so her circumference is 8.5. I've lost my pencil. So it's 8.5 divided by 3.14. That's going to equal your radius. In this case, that radius is 2.7, which I just did off camera. So 2.7 is your radius. All right. I'm just going to reuse this fabric. You fold your fabric into a quarter. All right. Then you measure, I'm going to use my straight ruler this time, 2.4 from the center. Then you measure 2.4 from the top. And then you make this line here. But don't forget you need your seam allowance. So make another line on the inner side. And I decided I want my skirt length to be about 6. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go 6. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go 6. Ooh, perfect. And then I'm probably going to go here, draw another 6. Draw another 6. Draw another 6. And then connect the dots. Or most of the dots. I think I made a mistake on that one in the middle. That's fine. Then you're going to make a seam allowance. So you're going to cut here, and you're going to cut here. Then you have a circle skirt. That's a very simple skirt. Now if you don't want to do a circle skirt, you can do a little rectangle. So let's open this up. My circumference of my doll was 8.5. I take 8.5 and times it by 2, which is 17. So I have 15 on my meter here, which is off camera. Let's see, 15, 16, 17, plus a centimeter for, yes, you've guessed it, seam allowance. So I now have half a centimeter on either side. You can do a little bit more. I'm probably going to do a little bit more. I would like mine to be a little bit more close to 8 than half a centimeter. So I added a little bit more. Then you're going to measure your length, which I want mine to be 6. 6 plus 18, because I want 8 on either side for my seam allowance, is going to be 7/8 here. And that is just a block for my poor fabric. That is just a block for your skirt, and you can make a gathered skirt real easily that way. So you can do the circle skirt or the gathered skirt. that is how you do it. It is very simple. I know I just kind of roughed it in and kind of pushed through it real quickly, but it's really not that hard. Basically, you just need a square of fabric. That's it. It's usually twice the amount for your waist. So there we go. I made it a little bit more fancy, and I made my circle skirt, and I'll show you what it looks like when you've finished making your mock-up and you got everything. So this is your mock-up. You mock up the design, you put it on your doll, and you figure out if it works. If it works, then you can use your nice fancy fabric, which I will show you what it looks like with the fancy fabric. So here's my doll. I have her in the fancy fabric. I made a lot of mock-ups. This one, because it took me a long time to figure out the extra little bit. So you know when I said to add the little bit on the side seams and the back seam? This is how long it took me 5 different tries to figure that one step out just to get it to fit the doll. And it's a very simple step to forget. So please add the extra bit of seam allowance or seam into your pattern so that it fits nicely and not too snugly. I tried scaling the entire thing up, which ended up being too big. I scaled it up by 110%, so just an extra 10%, and it was still too big. I wanted to fit nice and form-fitting like it did with my tape, but I wanted to be able to have the seam allowances inside as well as some lining, so all of that had to account, and all you needed to do was add a few millimeters on each side, each piece of the side, and then a few millimeters on the back. And that's all it took to make this beautiful dress. She has no hands, but that's fine. So that is the tutorial. This is the first part. In the second part, I'm going to show you how to do the dress. You can have the pattern. I'm going to give you the pattern for this particular dress, and I'm going to take you through the steps on how to create this beautiful dress. So stay tuned, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.